Hey, welcome. Today we're going to talk about something you've probably felt but maybe couldn't quite put your finger on, this hidden imbalance in how we support work. You see, we pour all this energy and money into a few giant projects, but what about the work that most of us are doing day in and day out? Let's find out where the real power for change might be hiding. So, right off the bat, I want you to think about your own job for a second. The stuff on your plate right now. Are you on one of those massive, high-profile initiatives? Or is your work more like the day-to-day engine that just keeps the whole place running? Just keep that in your head for a few minutes. Okay, so let's get real about what this looks like. You've basically got two different worlds. On one side, you have the big bet projects. I mean, this is the all-star treatment, right? Specialized coaches, whole teams dedicated to it, custom-built learning, big budgets. But then, there's the other side. Everyday work. The reality for most of us. And what's that look like? Yeah, it's projects you run off the side of your desk, generic training that doesn't really apply, and you're pretty much left on your own to figure stuff out with a tiny, tiny budget. The gap is just massive. And here's the absolute heart of the problem. Our support systems, the way we think about helping people at work, it's all designed for the exception. It's built for those rare, shiny projects. We're basically optimizing for the 1% of work, while the other 99%, the actual rule, is kind of left to fend for itself. This all stems from what the source calls the big project mental model. It's this deep-seated belief that for support to be good, it has to be this huge, intensive thing. The problem? When you try to scale that down for everyday work, you either water it down so much it's pointless or, and this happens a lot, you just ignore it completely. So, who's getting left behind by this way of thinking? Well, it turns out it's not some small group. It's a massive, hidden majority of the entire workforce. 98%. Just look at that number. It's huge. But what does it actually represent? Well, it represents just how skewed our entire view of the working world really is. And here's what's behind that number. In a country like Canada, a staggering 98% of all businesses with employees are small and medium-sized. So that means the context we usually design for, the giant corporation with the huge flagship projects, that's actually the rare exception. And this isn't just about the number of companies, it's about people. Look at this. Almost 2/3 of everyone working in the private sector works for one of these smaller companies. The so-called hidden majority is in fact the actual majority. So what's the reality on the ground? What does this actually feel like? Well, it feels like getting a new project dropped on you when you already have a full-time job. It's sitting through some generic workshop that has zero to do with your actual work. It's your boss telling you to go figure out AI with no help. And it's burnout from trying to make some huge, complicated project plan work for a tiny 2-week task. It's just frustrating. And all of this leads to what you could call an invisible inequity. The source puts it perfectly. The people who could most benefit from thoughtful support get the least context-appropriate version of it. Think about that. The teams running the leanest, the ones who need the help the most, they're the ones getting the worst, most generic support. Okay, if you want a perfect example of this happening right now, look no further than AI, artificial intelligence. This is where we can see that big project model playing out in real time, and it's creating some major problems. I mean, just look at the total mismatch here. All the money and energy for AI support seems to be flowing into these high-end things, building new AI products, developing super deep technical skills for a few specialized teams. But what do most of us actually need? We just need to understand what AI is, how it can maybe help us in our own work, and, some clear rules so we don't mess things up. And the result? We're actually creating a two-tiered system inside our own companies. We're making the gap wider and wider between a small group of people who feel AI ready and a huge majority who just feel confused, overwhelmed, and totally left behind. Okay, so enough doom and gloom. What's the alternative? Well, this brings us to a new playbook. What if we just flipped the whole model on its head? What if we started by designing support for the everyday, for the reality of how most of us actually work? It really boils down to 3 simple but really powerful shifts in how we think. We need to go from exceptional to everyday, from deep to broad, and from one-off events to continuous learning. Let's break that down. So shift number 1, from exceptional to everyday. This is all about making learning a totally normal part of the work week, not some special event you have to go to. So instead of a big workshop, imagine just short, practical learning moments built right into your regular team meetings. Super simple stuff,
like checklists or prompts that help you use a new skill on the thing you're literally working on right now.
Okay, shift 2 is about going broad instead of just deep. Yeah, we'll always need deep, specialized support for some things, but we need to pair that with lighter stuff that everyone can get their hands on. Things like short micro-learning videos, or maybe drop-in office hours with an expert, or simple toolkits that make it easy to try something new. It's about accessibility. And finally, number 3. This one's huge. We've got to move from one-off to continuous. We all know you forget almost everything from those big bang workshops. A much better way is to create ongoing touch points. Maybe every month your team has a small skill focus, and you do little experiments in your real work. It's about building that skill muscle over time, not just for one day. Now, hold on. This doesn't mean we just ditch big projects. No way. In fact, this is where it gets really clever. This opens up an amazing opportunity to actually use those big initiatives to lift up the entire system. And that brings us to this awesome idea called deliberate spillover. It's a simple but really powerful concept. It just means when we invest all that time and money into a big project, we should be intentional about designing it so that its lessons, its tools, its resources, all that good stuff can be easily used by everybody else. So how do you actually do that? It's pretty practical stuff, really. You make it a requirement that big projects create things everyone can use, like simple playbooks or short videos. You design their training so that people are expected to take it back to their own teams. And you create small project versions of their big tools, like a one-page canvas instead of some monster 40-page document. You just make the learning portable. So, as we wrap up, let's just come back to this central idea. We get so fixated on those few shiny flagship projects. But the truth is, the culture and the performance of any organization isn't really shaped by those. It's shaped by the thousands of tiny actions that thousands of people take every single day. And that means that supporting this everyday work, well, it isn't just a nice to have. In a system that is literally built on the daily efforts of the many, giving people thoughtful, useful support for that work is the single biggest lever you can pull. That is where the real leverage lives. And so, that brings us right back to you. Think about your team, your company, the stuff on your to-do list tomorrow. Where is the real leverage hiding in your everyday work, just waiting for the right kind of support to unlock it? Thanks for tuning in.